On today's episode, my cousin shows up. She may or may not be Deepika Padukone. No.
Ayo, we're the 9 to 5 misfits, back again to help you crush unemployment and find success on your own terms. Today at our Getting Real segment, we're talking about personal finances. We did talk about layoffs on Tuesday, and when you're laid off or you're unemployed or a misfit of any kind, if you're an entrepreneur or you're freelancing, money becomes an issue, am I right? So we have a special guest today. Ansuya Kabad is right here to tell us all the details about finances. All right, so we have you here on the show. Thank you for being here. Tell us something about yourself and what you're gonna help us out with today.
Well, I am a certified financial planner and a financial advisor. And so my goal is to work with young professionals and help them just understand their goals and their hopes and their dreams and their priorities. And then I help them structure their finances so that they can get to where they want to go and do what they want to do.
Nice.
It's really fun.
All about that money.
Money.
For people who just become unemployed or they are entrepreneurs or something where they're just starting out and they're not making a lot of money, what are some of the first things they should take into consideration?
That's a great question. I think one big thing to think about is, I'm going to use the B word, the budget.
No!
I know. Everybody cringes when I say that word, but really it doesn't matter if you are 19 or 99. The budget is really important to have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people see it as like a restriction, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But really a budget is there to help you prioritize your spending. And when you don't have a lot of money coming in, that's when you got to think about, well, what is really important to me right now to, one, live, and then two, to just be able to have a little bit of fun within in moderation, right? And kind of cut out the things that you don't really need in your life, you know? So budgets are your best friend.
Gross.
What's like an approachable way to do it as a young person?
A budget, I like to break it down into 3 questions. So the first question is, what do you need in your life to live, right? And obviously that's maybe food or a roof over your head, right? And then what are the things that are important to you, but maybe not as necessary? We call those the the discretionary funds, right? Because you're things that you like to do YOLO, right?
Like,
And then there are also some things that might not be important to you now, but will be important to you in the future. So that's where you're thinking about saving.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And how much, those are the things that are saving for retirement, saving for a home, saving for a 6-month trip to Africa or something.
Right.
That's what I think about. So a lot of times you hear like fixed costs and variable costs, or like discretionary and indiscretionary. But really, it's a sliding scale of how much you want to spend in your important things, YOLO things, and in your future kind of things, you know? And so you could have steak dinners every day if you wanted to,
but then you die.
But one, you die, right? And 2, it's like you're giving up something else, right? People think budgets are your constraints, but really your income and or lack of income is the actual restraint. So making it work within a budget is what kind of helps you understand your freedom and what you can do. So one thing to think about is, you know, maybe you're still employed and you're looking for a change, you want a new gig or something. In that time, it's important to really have an emergency fund. Now, what is an emergency fund, right? An emergency fund is just a pool of cash you keep in your savings and you don't touch it unless you have an emergency.
Penny jar in the bank.
Exactly. And it's so helpful because if you get laid off unexpectedly, or you know you want to change, then you can tap into those funds to hold you over during that transition. It's, like I said, you got to have a little bit of self-control, right? Not to touch it for like a shopping spree or retail therapy maybe or something, but really about keeping that emergency fund to tide you over.
Yes.
One other question people ask is, how much should I have in my emergency fund? So you think about your living expenses, right? How much is your living expenses per month? And you multiply that by usually 3 to 6 months of living expenses. are like the average or rule of thumb. But if you think like it's going to take a lot of time to get into your next venture, or maybe it's harder to find a job right now, then maybe save a little bit more in your emergency fund just as a buffer. So I think the emergency fund is also a really important thing to think about when you are employed, so that you are prepared for these transitions.
So we were talking about this, like how do people plan for retirement when they're unemployed? Because that happened to me suddenly, and I was like, oh no, like how do people even plan for that?
Yeah, I think, the goal when you're unemployed is to eventually be employed, right? And so the time will come when you do finally get that income. But when you aren't making the income, I think it's important to think about how you're managing debt. Because it's really easy to rack up credit card debt, right? Well, that's one form of debt. Doing, I think credit card debt is probably the most easy thing to think of.
Car payments, house payments, all
exactly.
of that stuff.
And so, when you do finally get a job, then you want to be able to use that opportunity to save for retirement or other goals, instead of having to pay off past credit card debt, which could have been a little bit controlled, So I think that's one consideration.
Nice. But what about entrepreneurs? Like they don't get this 401k like us. Like, so how do we plan for that?
I love that question because I think it's so interesting. Entrepreneurs are self-starters, right?
You know it.
Right? They do everything on their own. So why not start a retirement plan on your own, right? And when you think of entrepreneurs, self-employed, contract workers, there are retirement plan options out there for these situations. And so, you can talk to a financial advisor or any, go to a bank or something like that, and they can work out the different options and see which one's a good fit. Because all of them have their pros and cons, or, limitations and costs. And so being aware of that and then finding out what's a good fit for you. So everybody thinks of the 401k, as Phoebe from Friends says, the 401. Right? But there are other things out there besides just the 401k that could work for any type of situation.
So like an IRA or something.
Yeah, it goes beyond an IRA, a SEP IRA, simple IRA, like all the acronyms are out there for you.
Okay, so another question that I think most young people have is, and they're most intimidated by the idea of investing, right?
Yes.
And where do they even begin? What's a good starting point?
I love that question. I think people always come to me asking, how do I invest? Well, let's take a few steps back, right? Investing is a tool to help you reach your financial goals.
Right.
So first to think, what are my financial goals?
Right. To ball.
Actually, that's so true. I never thought about. I just thought, I must invest. Here, take my money and do something.
Exactly, right? And I like to think of investing like a train. In order to know what train you got to get on, you have to know where you are and you have to know where you're going. And then you can decide which train you need to get on, right? And so I think that's first most important, is think about what your financial goals are. And then the second thing is, unless you inherit $1 million or you like win the lottery, for us, investing becomes available to us when we save. And so if you don't know how to save, you gotta go back to the budget. Your budget. Go back to school.
I don't want a budget. You can't make me. So growing up, I wasn't educated very much about finance. Like the only thing they told me was like, mom and dad were like, you need to save, that's it. Or you need to make money, get a good job, and that's it. Like there was nothing more about exactly what we need to do. So what are the common misconceptions out there, especially amongst Daisy kids, about like investing in personal finance?
Absolutely. I think one misconception is that you have to have a load of money to be able to think about personal finance. But really, think about how many financial decisions you make on a daily basis. Sometimes it's as simple as like, no, I don't want to go to that gas station. I want to go to this gas station, right? Like, you make financial decisions all the time. So why not stop and think about the long term, what kind of financial choices you want to make. Every little bit helps, right? And even just saving, like you don't have your Starbucks every day, you make coffee or something. Those are simple things you can think about, and they make a big impact over the long run. So that's one misconception. Another misconception, it's not really a misconception, but it's an attitude I think a lot of young Desi kids have grown up with, is we've seen our parents, or we've we've heard about our parents coming to this country, working super hard, and it's like now when they're kind of in a position of stability and comfort, that's when they're enjoying life.
Yeah.
Right? And we're like, is that how it has to be?
Yeah, like, do we have to wait that long?
Yeah, like
I want to Paris now. Like,
right? Like, I want to enjoy my life now while also preparing financially, right? And so I think, you know, I go back to it again, thinking about those goals, putting some steps in place to help you get to those goals. It's possible.
Moving on from misconceptions, what are some common mistakes you've seen people make when it comes to personal finance?
I think some common mistakes are, first of all, they don't get started. They don't get started until much later in life or when something happens to them, like they need some trigger to do it. I've also seen, particularly with women, I've seen a lot of women feel like, I need to know everything, or I need to be like fully prepared before I can make a financial decision. And I do think you need to be informed, right? But there are some things that are outside of your control. Right? And so being aware of like, okay, pros and cons to this option, and this is what seems right to me, those, and then you can make that jump and you can always adjust too. And you know, getting help, being able to get help, I think is a really good thing to think about.
Seek help.
So by help, do you mean like going to a financial advisor? Because that's so that's one thing I should bring up. So, you know, we were just talking about this like last week, because we're like, when we think of going to a financial advisor, we think of it being, I mean, no offense, but usually like a middle-aged white man. And so, you know, it's kind of, it's intimidating, and you feel like, I don't want this person to like judge me for my life choices, because I'm,
like that bar. That's our bar. I was taking the bar. Like, that's what it was.
I mean, Ansuya is a financial advisor, and I was like, well, if my financial advisor looked like you, I would go to them, because you're like super non-judgmental and just normal.
And you probably speak me, and not, you know, it's like I won't understand the terms and stuff otherwise, and I'm like intimidated. I'm like, I'll take my dad with me because I don't understand most of this stuff.
Absolutely. I think it's like, you know, there's a wealth of information out there.
Right.
But I think sometimes that becomes paralyzing, right? Because you're like, wait a second, what's right for me? You know, and so that's where it helps to have somebody come in and say, hey, these are some ways to look at it. This is how you can do it. What do you feel comfortable with, you know? And you're right, having it in a non-judgmental, like very open space is super important, because you know, you trust your doctor with how you treat your body, right? So it's important to have someone you trust when you talk about your finances too.
Yeah, because it's so personal.
It is. And I think that's a good point, right? People don't realize how personal finance can be. You know, it is a purely independent decision, and we hear so much from different people, oh, I can do this, oh, this stock went so high, you know? And you're like, wait, what am I doing?
Did I miss everything?
You know, and it's like, maybe that's not even applicable to you. Maybe that's not even important to you know? So I think giving yourself some leeway and being a little bit forgiving too, and you know, your standards are different than everyone else's. Your happiness is defined by you, not by anyone else in the world.
You get it. Get out of here, these young teens. Alright, so other than you, what are some of the best resources that our viewers could use to learn about personal finance?
I think there are a ton of different websites and personal blogs, and even going to your bank. There are people there that can help talk to you about different things too. So, you know, not being afraid to just seek them out. And I think what's most important is a lot of people are told what to do, but they're not understanding why they should do it. You know, and so really making sure you understand like why you're doing something. It sounds so obvious, but then
it's just not.
There's so many things we tend to do out of like blind faith, but then if we don't question and be like, wait, why am I doing this exactly?
It's true, because like with the 401k, I never really understood what it was. I was just like, everybody said put something in the 401k, and I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. I didn't know what it was. And it's like, because it was intimidating to like, who am I gonna go to? They're gonna tell me some words that I
Yeah.
don't get.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Like, if it's like break it down even more, sure, you know, what is a stock?
Yeah.
What is a bond? Like,
Yeah.
what is a 401k? You know, those are all super valid questions.
Right.
And when you think about it, they're questions that help you set up your future.
right.
Yeah.
Right? And so you might as well get a real good understanding of it
Yeah.
before you move forward.
Can you tell the audience first of all where they can find you, and then also what is Moola and Mimosas?
Ooh, I love this. I love Moola and Mimosas. So you can find me you can go to our website and get my contact information there. I'm always happy to talk about these kinds of things. It's a big passion of mine. Moola and Mimosas is my favorite thing in the world. I just thought that a lot of women, young professional women, wanted to know more about finance. And it's like you said, they wanted to go to someone they could talk to,
Yeah.
that look like them, that, you know, live their life kind of similar to how they do it. And so the goal of Moola and Mimosas is just to have an open forum for smart, driven women to talk about personal finance. And I just want people to feel really empowered and confident about their financial well-being. And so that's what Moola and Mimosa is for. We sit, we drink, we eat good food. Well, I make the food, so hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. And then we talk about money.
It's such a cool concept and such a nice way to approach the whole topic of personal
So
finance.
thank
So
you.
yeah, we'll link all of our information below. And if you live in the Houston area, you should go check out Moola and Mimosas.
Check it out. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks for
This is
having
awesome.
me. It was fun.
I'm all kinds of confident about my money now. So that's our little version of Purred Happy's Ya Heard with Purred.
And that is the end of the story, and we're going to stop talking now.